Welcome to the Everything Embodiment Podcast, where I will help you find peace, understanding, and love all within your human body, enhancing your mind-body connection through the exploration of vast ideas, concepts, and modalities, discussions all meant to propel you along your own unique spiritual journey. I'm your host, Amber Miller. Welcome back, everybody, for another week of the Everything Embodiment Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Miller. I took a few weeks off. I just felt the call, and I just really wanted to be really present with my kids and my family at summer break. And we've gone on a lot of adventures, and I just feel so grounded and refreshed and ready to be back. This week, I want to discuss the concept of pre-birth planning, and I debated with myself for a while on how I was going to do this, because this is, one, a heavier topic, and two, it's a topic that is just not going to resonate with some people. So with that, I'm just going to dive in and tell my story and how pre-birth planning really facilitated a lot of healing and growth in my own life. And I guess I just will throw out there is talk of suicide as a trigger warning. So if that is just something that you're not feeling today, here's your warning. So pre-birth planning, what is it? I believe that pre-birth planning is the belief that we plan our biggest lessons before we are born. I believe that through this planning and the power of free will is how our souls grow and evolve. So I was first introduced to the concept of pre-birth planning listening to a podcast interview featuring Rob Schwartz. He is not a medium, but he's a hypnotist, and he gets his clients into these states of hypnosis where they are able to recall the pre-birth planning sessions. I have come to find that there are many ways to access this information, and hypnosis is just one. When I was listening to this initial podcast interview with Rob Schwartz, I just had this immediate sacral response, yes, and a soul resonance with everything he talked about. I'm going to share an example of a fictional pre-birth plan showing how free will can affect or alter these plans, and it's one that Rob Schwartz uses. So Rob Schwartz gives the example of there's a woman named Sally who and forgive me, this is, going from memory, so he says it better. Anyhow, he gives an example of a woman named Sally who has a tendency to kind of buckle to the pressure of others, do what others expect of her. And so she wants in her next lifetime to address this. It's something that's carried over in a couple lifetimes, and she hasn't learned the lesson yet. Well, also in her soul group is someone named, I think he used Gary. So Gary has the opposite. He has a tendency to be overbearing to other people. So they agree in their pre-birth planning that they will get into a marriage with each other at age 30, and it will be a challenging marriage as they both work through their lessons. Gary wants to get over his controllingness, and Sally wants to get over being a pushover. So Sally is incarnated, and in her lifetime, let's say at age 25, she gets a job with an overbearing boss, and she finally gets the self-confidence to overcome the tendency to buckle to the pressure of others. So this raises her vibration if she continues on this path of self-worth. And because her vibration is higher, she's no longer a match for the plan that she had with Gary. So they either won't meet or they do meet and there's just no chemistry, and that's that. They move on. So that's just one of, endless possibilities of what we would have in our pre-birth plan. So Rob Schwartz went on, he wrote a few books, and each chapter is kind of a different challenge that we may have planned for ourselves. So I was all amped up after I heard this podcast. I just felt this deep, profound resonance, and I immediately purchased one of his books. So I got, I believe it was his second book, Your Soul's Gift. It was shortly after my spiritual awakening inducing miscarriage. And the fact that there was a whole chapter on why we would plan a miscarriage, I felt drawn to this book over the others. This book, you guys, go get it if it's calling to you, because life-changing is an understatement. I was able to take something from each chapter, even if it was not something that I personally experienced. I could now see the biggest struggles, burdens, traumas of my life in a new light. I saw them as pieces in a large puzzle, and I had an almost instantaneous forgiveness for those in my life who had hurt me. I had felt a profound understanding of these people on a soul level. I feel like with this understanding, I was propelled along my spiritual journey, and I truly lived my life in a different way because of it. So I'm going to share with you personally some of the challenges in my life, and some of the biggest challenges start with the relationship with my dad. My parents divorced when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and it was amicable enough. I remember being okay with it, and my mom and dad both seemed happy. They really never fought in front of us, but it just felt lighter when they were individual. So everything was relatively good until my mom remarried when I was in 4th grade. That's when everything changed. It was like my dad just couldn't cope with it. So he chose to move back to his hometown in Michigan, leaving his 3 kids, me and my brothers, behind in Wisconsin. And aside from a few phone calls, I really only saw him 2 or 3 more times now, and that was in 4th grade, and I am now 38. And I have no idea what ever happened to my dad. I have no idea if he is even alive. So he visited us when I was in about 8th grade, again when I was a freshman in college, and the last time I had seen him, I would guess I was maybe 23, 24. So I didn't know it at the time, but I suffered so much abandonment trauma from him. I never could understand why he'd choose to leave us. I am so grateful and thankful for my stepdad, but growing up I always had anger at my father for choosing to leave his kids. Now, there were other things about my childhood that left me feeling very unloved. My brother tormented me constantly, and not the normal brother-sister bickering, but the just brutal verbal abuse from him. He told me how fat and ugly and undesirable I was until the day I moved away. And my mom, who was a product of her own traumas, I would call her an emotionalist robot. And I did have a few close friends that I am forever grateful for and still close with. I never felt like I could relate with them. I never could feel carefree and happy. I was always stressed about money and dealing with being overweight and what I thought was ugly and undesirable. I was so lonely. So of course, after years and years of just this lonely, sad feeling all the time, on top of, stress about money and things like that, even as a kid, I started having suicidal thoughts, and I wanted out. I was so alone, and I just hurt so deeply. In high school, my best friend honestly was my cat Dazzle, and really my main source of companionship and love. Anytime I thought about actually carrying through with suicide, the things that would stop me were my cat, and then I just couldn't let my mom find me, and that was it. Just this inner knowing I could not let my mom find me unalive. I'd put myself in very dangerous situations in the event there would be an accident, but I could never bring myself to actually carry out the suicide attempt. So I am sharing all of this to give you guys an understanding of the pre-birth planning that went into my life. Before having an actual pre-birth planning session myself, I had been able to piece together that I had planned emotionally and physically unavailable parents and a lack of deep connection to others as a way to cultivate self-love within and for myself. Never really being shown love was a way to force myself to find it. I was happy enough connecting these dots, and it began a deep dive of healing and forgiveness. I saw my parents and brother in a whole new way. I was no longer angry or resentful of any of them, and it felt really good to come to terms with all of this. It just felt like it made sense. So despite all this healing and connections made, I still felt the nudge that I wanted to do a proper session with Rob Schwartz. So the day finally came where I booked. And when the day arrived, I was so excited. I tried to release any expectations and just go into it with an open mind. I was very surprised to learn that Rob Schwartz would be guiding us to some scenes from a significant past life. And I will admit, this really scared me. I've never felt a huge pull to explore any of my past lives. I believe lessons and karma were dealt with and no real reason to get hung up there. But I was eager to learn and see what came up. So here I am, kind of freaked out, but eager to be hypnotized. And we start the session, and I am shown this past life where I was, beautiful. I was financially wealthy. Everything was good. But as I got older, I found that I really didn't have these deep connections. I was starting to realize that a lot of the connections I had were tied to my beauty. And I had people in my life, but I never realized that they cared for me. I thought that they just were in my life because of, maybe they were a staff member of mine. So I was shown in this past life that I took my own life by gun, and I saw the reaction of the woman that found me, and this woman was, my truest, deepest friend, and I didn't realize it. It's like I didn't value who she was or her role in my life because I didn't believe it. So I immediately felt all the feelings of this woman, my friend, finding that I had shot myself, and it just hurt in my core. And then I thought, I didn't make this connection until later, but I was like, oh, that makes sense why as a teenager I just was like, oh my gosh, no, my mom can't find me. And then another just weird side note is I've heard that, and I don't know how true it is, but I've heard that some scars or disfigurements in this lifetime that we're born with can be things carried over from a past life. I have a scar on the side of my head that looks like a mosquito bite. It's in front of my earlobe, kind of on my cheek. And it's been there my whole life, and it's just this red bump. And I just get chills thinking about the scene that I saw where I put a gun up to my head. So anyway, don't know if it's related or not, but I think it could be. So in that life, I clearly failed to find my value, and it's something that I brought into this life. And I'm proud to say I feel I've learned that lesson. I know my value now. I found my self-worth, but I did go through some dark times to get there. I cannot stress enough the profound healing this whole pre-birth planning journey has brought me, and how I just view the world differently now. So I personally got into Reiki to start learning how to, heal myself and help others heal, because I've been on that suicidal doorstep. I've been depressed. And I've had absolutely no self-worth, and I've been able to build myself up and heal myself and forgive everyone in my life. And like I said, I just live with such peace and purpose now. So if you follow me on my social medias, you'll see that I actually shut down my Reiki bookings for the summer. I just felt the call that I had to take a break. And in addition to this break, I really felt the nudge that I needed to evolve in what I'm doing. So I have actually started training to be an Akashic record reader. And I believe I like to give everything the space to evolve and grow, but it's my goal to be able to provide the types of sessions like Rob Schwartz provides to help understand why we would plan some of these heartbreaking, really oftentimes tragic events. Help people understand their life themes and some purposes and some of the lessons that they set out to learn. So still in the early stages, but on the horizon. I will have Rob Schwartz's info in the show notes. And as always, please feel free to rate, review, and share the podcast. I would love for this to reach as many people as possible, as it is my goal to spread knowledge and healing. You can find out more about me at emeraldoakenergy.com or find me on Instagram and TikTok at everything.embodiment. I will meet you all back here for the next episode.